Okay, questions. Go right to it. Have at it. Initial take. Um, really talented. Quinterly and David Jones are terrific players. I mean, they can really score one on one and obviously within their offense. I mean, they're just gifted players. I think they run some unique stuff, good stuff with good spacing. Defensively, they muck the game up a little bit with, they'll press you some, they'll trap, just every once in a while on their own. Obviously, Penny calls some of it. You can see him calling it. So, they're just trying to be disruptive and not let you get into any rhythm. They've got good depth. I think they play really hard. What they've done so far is really, really good considering they just played, I think it was 6 straight road games against high-level competition. So obviously he's, one of the reasons this game came about is because Memphis is willing to play anybody. And, I think they got Virginia after us. Like it's their gauntlet of scheduling, prepares their guys. Obviously, them being in the American, I know they're trying to get games against high majors, but they're a high major program. I mean, it'll be an electric atmosphere. I've never been there, but I've heard it'll be unbelievable. And they just have a really good program. They're playing really well. They've had good teams back to back to back. It'll be a real challenge for our team.
How much has this week of, rest helped you guys after the bombing you went through?
Yeah, it's helped us a little bit. We were off Sunday. Sunday we had really another hard travel. We got delayed, and I don't think we got home till almost 3 in the morning again. So Sunday is just kind of a blur for everybody. But guys got treatment, and we did a few things on Monday, and then gave them Tuesday off again with finals, and then obviously we're doing some stuff now to start to get ready for Memphis. But I do think it was good to have a couple of days after that trip. It was a long way to go to get there, and felt like a long way to get back. But it was a great trip, and obviously a good win. But it was good to have a couple days. But I do think the one thing is, our guys are working. Like there's academic stuff that they've been doing all. Somebody just said they had 3 papers due and 2 tests this week, and I just was talking to a couple guys that still have work to do. A bunch of guys still have work to do, a couple exams and assignments, and so there's the physical part. I think it's fine. Like we can get away and in practice. Like we'll have plenty of practice time. I do worry just a little bit about the mental. Just there's some stress with all that's going on with these guys this week. Maybe detracting a little, but physically in terms of what we need to do to practice and get ready, and we should be physically really ready to go and ready to play.
These road games, to be earning them like you guys are, what are we not seeing? What are you picking up on and recognizing about your team right now that you're the most proud of or is standing out, jumping off the page for you?
Yeah, I just think, we've been a little resilient at times. When we've gotten behind, we've been fine. We haven't panicked. We've kept playing, stayed with things. I think we've done a good job, both as a staff and team, of making a few adjustments every once in a while within games, or whether it's timeouts or halftime. And having an older group helps because you feel like they can handle that, and they can make an adjustment on the fly, and I think that experience has helped us. And just that they've come together the way they have. Every time you start a new season, there's a different voice in the room. There's you got to start over and building your group, and they've done a really good job of coming together, listening with each other and trusting each other and just playing good basketball and kind of doing what's necessary maybe, is because every game can be a little bit different and play itself out a little different. And sometimes it's more a little inside or outside or defense or rebounding, or whatever we need to do, our guys have been able to make some adjustments to how we're being played pretty well.
We keep hearing the word love come up from your players. Both the young men that were in here, when we talked to PJ before the South Carolina,
Yeah.
I mean, the word keeps coming up
Yeah.
from your guys. And
Mhm.
I'm sure it's led
Yeah.
by you. Why
Yeah.
is that so important?
I do think we have a group that loves each other and cares about each other deeply, and I think we have really good human beings on our team. I mean, these guys are caring folks. They come from really good families, and you know, and we try to talk about those things. You know, that's important to us. You know, and then, you know, we started today with a little bit of a life lesson more than Memphis. We were going to start with Memphis, but Coach wanted to do a little life lesson on a topic, and so we kind of tangented for 10 minutes on that to start today. And so I do think that we do those things periodically to make sure that our guys know we care about them, and we're trying to teach them things that are more than just basketball, and we're trying to get them to understand how special a time this is in their life, and to really do the best you can to focus all your energy on this. Especially when you're here. We want you to be a student. We want you to have a good experience. We want you to enjoy college. But, you know, when it's time to do our basketball stuff, man, we got to throw ourselves into that, and kind of learning how to handle all of that is a big part of it. And but I do think it's just a group that respects one another, cares about one another, loves one another, and they enjoy spending a lot of time with each other. And, you know, we think that obviously that really helps our team, our camaraderie, our willingness to share, our willingness to sacrifice, our willingness to play for other people, and you know, that's part of our secret sauce.
Ian made some really good passes Saturday.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a part of his game? Well, obviously he gets credit for the rebound
Yeah.
part.
I think that's just who he is as a player. I think that's something we noticed in recruiting, that he had good feel. You know, some guys just have better feel than others. They just see things. The game slows down in front of them. They can see, you know, what needs to be done, and he's one of those guys, and that was part of the reason why we recruited him. You know, he was, you know, a high school center. There were some things that can he do this? Can he do this at this level? Will he be able to do this? But when a guy has feel and a guy has competitiveness, they usually figure it out. Those guys usually figure out how to play and be good contributors. There's going to be some things they can't do as well, or, you know, in some ways it may take more time for athleticism. We knew that he was a sneaky athlete too, that, you know, when he got to be old enough that he was going to be big and strong, he'd carry good weight, and he was bouncier than people realized. And so, you know, I don't think we're surprised, you know, by what he's doing. But I do think the feel part that you mentioned was a big factor in us deciding to take him, you know, because he did have he wasn't really a high school center, a college center at this level. He's not really the four-man that stretches it and makes a bunch of threes. He's just kind of an old school power forward type. And but he has more, you know, skill level and passing that is really good. And so, you know, like one of the passes he made on the little high-low drop-off to PJ was high level.
That was one of the corners.
Yeah.
Were you surprised that other programs didn't pick up on some of that stuff, or did you understand some of that?
Yeah, I mean, I just think there are times you look at guys with the measurables, and, you know, if he was 6'10", everybody would have recruited him. But because he's 6'7.5", you know, he's not really a center. You know, if he's a traditional center and he can do all that, wow, now he's really sought after. But because he's a little bit shorter and a little bit, you know, maybe doesn't run quite as well as you would like, you know, and, you know, he wasn't a guy that was making threes back in high school. And so he's improved his game. He's expanded his game. But so, no, I wasn't surprised. I think, you know, he was probably recruited at the level that a lot of people thought, which was, I mean, he did have like Virginia Tech and he had Clemson. He had some folks. He just didn't have 10 high major schools recruiting him. He just had a couple. And then he had some really good mid-plus schools that, know what they're doing. That, Richmond did a really good job recruiting him. They recruited him hard, and those are the kind of guys they get that are good players that know how to play. And so I think he was probably about what most people would expect.
I think Coach Pierce was saying there was like one time, and he's one of their better players, and he's literally like, there's a mob of guys on the ground. He like dodged straight.
Oh, yeah.
Like, do you remember moments like that?
Just that, yeah, you just knew he was a competitive guy now. Like, he's not afraid. And when you did your homework and find out he's a football guy and he was a really good football player, and there's just an element of toughness that it all kind of, and then you talk to Ian, and it's just it all, like, if you're doing your work, kind of what you're getting that way. There's a lot of positives. There's a lot of boxes that are checked, but there are still a couple of the natural ones that you kind of go to first with size and athleticism and, length or whatnot, that maybe he's a little bit not quite there, and then you decide as a coach, what do I want? Do I want, a competitive guy like that who has an IQ, who's been on some good high school teams and knows what winning looks like, and yeah, I want that guy. So he certainly is had and he had a good year last year. Like, he was, his development has been right in front of our eyes. Like, it's next progression. Some of it was getting Ian to believe he was as good as he is. We're still that way a little bit, because he played with so many other good players in high school. He was never the man, and so you kind of got to think you're really good to start doing some things. Now, I think he thought he was a good rebounder, right? I think he thought he had some toughness and he knows how to play, but maybe score 20 a night, like, he's not really wired to do that. I think some of those things could happen as he continues to get better, but he's wired more to do what he does right now.
You talk about who he was, and that maybe some of those other, the 10 high majors weren't all going for him. How much of that is you guys were in the right spot as well to be able to invest in a guy,
Yeah.
knowing who you had and
Yeah.
looking at your roster?
Yeah, I think, he's the typical guy that we like to recruit. And I think when we, recruited him and really went after him hard, and it was COVID, so it was different, but, like, it was a natural fit for both of us. I think, he saw where Clemson's a great place. It's close to home, ACC, high-level basketball. These guys seem like pretty good guys, and, like, they develop players, and I can see a vision where I get better here, right? I mean, he was smart enough to know he's not coming in and changing the program. He's going to have to work at it and get better. But I think, he wanted to play at the highest level because he felt like he could, right? I mean, he's not a guy that didn't think he was a good player. It's just, I think he was looking for the right kind of fit, and, having been on campus before and knowing that it's close and doing his research on us, I think it was a natural fit.
I asked your guys this, and I know winning is obviously fun.
Yeah.
But how much fun is this right now with this group and the success that you guys are having?
Yeah, we're enjoying ourselves, and I want our guys to enjoy this. It's unbelievable. It's fun. It's because it's such a good group of guys, you enjoy coaching them every day. You enjoy being around them. I enjoy watching them interact with each other. It's fun sometimes. I was sitting with Coach Reynolds in the airport. I don't even know what time it was. We were delayed for a couple hours or whatnot, and literally there was 9 of them. I think it was 9 of them that were 100 yards down the concourse or whatnot, and there's almost nobody in the airport, and they're just like. His wife was sitting with us, and I said, look at them. They look like a bunch of little, high school kids or middle school kids, the way they're interacting with one another. You can see them teasing each other and just having a good time. And that part of that is why we're good. And part of that is the natural, order that they all have with one another. They can kid each other and goof around. They want to be in there. Like, they want to be over there doing that, as opposed to sitting on their phone, at a chair waiting on the plane. And that stuff is fun to watch too, like meals, just all the stuff that we do, because we do a lot of things that don't involve basketball too. And I think that, that speaks to the culture that we have here and the kind of guys we have. But that makes it enjoyable when you enjoy being around your guys as much as we all do.
On court, toughness was something I think even you probably questioned
Yeah.
after y'all lost Tyson. Has that exceeded your expectations?
Yeah, I think we've done well that way. Yeah, just, how are you going to handle some things? Are they going to hold each other accountable, right? Will they – it's great you like each other, but we don't always like what we all do, right? And in a competitive sport, are we gonna set standards of performance, and are we going to set standards of accountability that we've got to make sure that we're all meeting? And when, invariably we're not all – coming to practice every day or playing every game with tremendous confidence and we feel great and we're 100%. Like we're going to make mistakes. We might even be having a bad day, and so we don't have a great attitude one day, or we're a little down in the dumps, or we're quiet, or whatever it is. How are we going to rally? Who's going to do that within our team? Or do we have a team that will allow each other to do that? Is there somebody that they, Hunter just had so much respect that nobody would ever question if he called somebody out. I don't know that we've had to do a lot of calling each other out, but there have been times you're going to have to remind each other, hey, let's make sure we're ready to go today, or let's make sure that, like the coaches are emphasizing rebounding or whatever it is, like let's do this, and sometimes it's around us. Sometimes I've told you guys, like we're quiet occasionally in a huddle or to make them, they know sometimes coach isn't saying anything. That means we have to say something. And they've done a very good job of that. PJ has done a very good job of that. Joe, I think, is getting better at that. And so, yes, that part has been good because I do think there's a void there in player-led voice that has to be filled, and who's doing it. Doesn't happen all the time, but it's been good.
I guess where are Alex and Jack?
Yeah, still waiting. Jack actually was getting an MRI today. So, I don't anticipate either one playing before Christmas. I think, we're hoping that they're progressing. They seem to be. But, Jack's been a little more frustrating and feels like took a couple steps forward for a while and then just maybe a step or two back, and just haven't been able to get him to where he really feels comfortable. And, I think it's one of those deals where he's never going to feel great all the time. And you kind of get to a point sometimes in your career where, it's going to be uncomfortable at times. It just can't be, where he's in danger of getting hurt more. And so I think we're trying to kind of get to that point where you almost have to, relax their mind to know that you're okay, you can play through some stuff. Now we're going to have to, figure it out, and that's we're kind of in the process with both of them on that.
Go ahead, Pete.
Hey, Brad. Ian had said that the snub last year from the NCAA kind of fueled them a lot during the off season to get this way. Did you see that at times, and did that kind of hearten you a little bit to say, yeah, these guys, they cared about what happened and they're ready to do something different about it?
Yeah, we've talked about this a couple times, or at least I have. I think it was really important that our guys, I cannot express to anybody the amount of disappointment we felt on Selection Sunday. I mean, that was just, that was one of the harder moments in my college coaching career. And that was just, it was like for 2 days we were all numb. I mean, just like, and obviously because of NC State and Pitt, and I don't mean to just what happened in those games, that made it hit home even more. It's almost like this isn't fair. Like we don't even care about the outcomes now. We're worried about all this other stuff. And we understand, hey, we lost a game, 1 or 2 games we shouldn't lose, all that. But we won a lot of games against tournament teams and people that qualify. And so I know I'm giving a long-winded answer. So I guess there was immediate hurt for a long time. And then obviously playing poorly and losing to Moorhead, probably poured salt on the wound, and deservedly so. That loss is on me more than the players. And I think eventually when we got to the summer and you kind of got your new team back, there was certainly some noise from the guys on the team who had been through it that, obviously we talked about leave no doubt. The obvious answer to that or look of that motto is, hey, we don't want to put it in the committee's hands or whatever. We want to handle it ourselves. But I also think, I quickly tried to talk to our team about we can't live in the past. We can't make this about last year's snub. This has to be about the collection of this year's team. And we have a lot of guys who weren't on last year's team. And in some ways it's disrespectful to them to make that all that we're talking about. And so while that was certainly part of what drove some of our guys, I think quickly moving to the next thing of hey, this year's team, we have a really good team. We think we have a really good team. If we can control what we can control, if we can leave no doubt in our preparation and focusing on the things that matter to us and what we need to do to get better, the rest of the good things will take care of its success, right? And that's kind of how we've really tried to do this. And so I think there was some fuel. In fact, we used a quote, success comes to those who are too busy to be looking for it, right? And we've kind of talked about that with our team. And that's a Milt Louder quote that he shared with me a million years ago. And so, that's a good message for us, though. And it's been a message we've used a couple times, used it this week to keep us on task and what we've got to do. And so this year's team, I think it's been a fine line. We've really tried to focus on this group. But certainly our older guys, the guys that have been through it, they're scarred. We're all scarred. That's still painful to think about. We try not to live there, though.
Yeah. Brad, too, I wanted to know, you thought in the summer, you thought in preseason that you had a chance to be pretty good, right? You talked about that a couple of times. When you see it unfold like this, how do you as a coach try and manage success? That seems like it seems like coaches are built for, okay, this is what went wrong, let's fix it. How do you kind of handle success like this?
Every week, I've said this in the past too, it's, I try to message my team for what I think we need that week. Whether it's last week, we've got 3 games in 6 days, this, and this, whatever the focus of that week's going to be this week. Hey, we've got finals and a game on Saturday, and sometimes it's just stating the obvious, sometimes it's giving them something to be mindful of. It's a quote like that, or, talking to them in a way that it's real, right? I think making sure that you address things with them, things that you're concerned about, things that are natural, complacency. We've talked about complacency ever since we got back from Davidson and winning the championship at Asheville. That it's tendency when you have success to be complacent. And one of the things you admire about Coach Noonan, Coach Sweeney with football is it's hard to have sustained success in anything you do, and it's just complacency sets in players and coaches and everything, and it's a challenge. And, that's why, again, it goes back to that quote, you're too busy to be looking for it. Your head's down, you're doing your job, you're working, you're not worried about outside noise. You want to enjoy the journey, and we try to enjoy it, but managing that with also staying on point when, there's a lot of attaboys that are happening, it becomes hard. Right. And ultimately you try to get with your older players and make sure your older players are messaging your other guys throughout the team. And so we do that consistently and talk about it.
Thanks, Brad.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Is part of Chase's challenge adjusting to playing with and around Joe?
Yeah, a little bit. I think it's a fine line for him right now. You know, he is, and he's wired to score probably. And so when we moved him to the point last year, I think there are times he fights that natural urge. And so sometimes he gets in attack mode when he maybe shouldn't be. Other times I think, you know, it's not easy when PJ's scoring, Joe's scoring, and then, you know, man, I'm ready to help our team too. Like, you know, I think we all kind of end up having an identity in our mind. And I think, like, when you grow up as a guy who probably scored as much as Chase did, you probably think of yourself as a scorer. So, like, if you're not scoring as much, in some way in your mind, you might not be helping the team as much as you feel like you should or can. And if you're not careful, you can, like, work against yourself a little, right? Just like it's almost like Ian's the other way, right? Like, Ian has never really been a big scorer, but he wants to be a good player. He's always been a good rebounder. Well, hell, you can't rebound too much, right? So, like, I'm just going to try to go get them all, right? You know, Chauncey, you're not going to get any, right? Like, I'm just going to get them all. And so it's an interesting dynamic, but I do think, you know, those are things that go through people's minds. And then obviously outside folks, you know, adding pressure. So there's a lot there, but yeah.
It's just to clarify with Jack, I know his groin surgery's coming
Mhm.
in. Is it still the groin surgery?
Yeah,
Also
it's
next-
still growing, yep.
Okay. No effect on the-
No, not that I'm aware of. We'll see if this MRI reveals anything different. All good? Okay. Thanks.